some stories refused to fade with time. Franchises such as Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who have survived decades, reshaped popular culture, and inspired generations of fans. Yet for every science fiction giant that endured, many others flared just as brightly before collapsing just as fast. These were series that once matched Star Trek in popularity, audience devotion, and creative ambition. They offered worlds that were bolder, stranger, and more daring. But away from the screen, the entertainment industry followed a familiar pattern. It took inspired creations and slowly crushed them. Some were undermined by corporate profit-chasing. Others were rebooted so often that their identity vanished. And a few were dismantled so completely that even loyal fans eventually gave up. Today, those forgotten legends are being brought back into the light. These are 10 science fiction shows that should have ruled the stars, but instead were repeatedly ruined by Hollywood itself. Strap in, because the further this journey goes, the clearer it becomes that Hollywood is often not the savior of great stories, but their destroyer. We begin with number 10. Lost in Space debuted in 1965, years before Star Trek would ignite a cultural revolution. At the time, Lost in Space was already captivating audiences with greater charm, humor, and emotional warmth. The series followed the Robinson family, pioneers chosen to help establish a distant colony after Earth's resources began to dwindle. Along the way, their spacecraft was knocked off course, leaving them stranded in the vast unknown of space. The premise blended classic family adventure with science fiction spectacle, presenting a survival story filled with vibrant visuals and futuristic wonder. The cast chemistry worked effortlessly, and ratings climbed rapidly. For a period, Lost in Space surpassed Star Trek in popularity, becoming a cultural phenomenon with iconic characters and memorable catchphrases. However, success attracted interference. Hollywood, unable to leave success untouched, began reshaping what already worked. After the original series ended in 1968, studios repeatedly attempted to modernize it. In doing so, they removed the playful tone, emotional warmth, and innocence that defined it. When the 1998 film adaptation arrived, featuring Matt LeBlanc, William Hurt, and Gary Oldman, longtime fans expected a respectful revival. Instead, they were given a bleak and joyless reinterpretation that confused seriousness with depth. The strong family dynamic was replaced by exposition-heavy dialogue and excessive CGI. Still unsatisfied, Netflix attempted another revival in 2018. Though visually impressive and high-budget, this version shifted focus away from the family itself, burying the heart of the story under melodrama and manufactured tension. While critics admired the production quality, they missed the essence. Lost in Space was never about saving humanity, it was about humanity itself. Each reboot failed for the same reason. Hollywood tried to force the series into a darker, more cinematic mold it was never meant to occupy. Audiences never asked for that. They wanted a family lost together, surviving and hoping among the stars. Despite its imperfections, the original series remains the only version that truly captured that spirit, reminding viewers that the most powerful science fiction isn't about machines, but about the people holding everything together. At number 9 is V from 1983. During the spring of that year, television audiences were stunned as enormous alien vessels appeared above cities worldwide. These beings, calling themselves visitors, claimed peaceful intentions, offering advanced medicine and technology. Yet unease quickly set in. People began to vanish, information was tightly controlled, and cheerful broadcasts took on an unsettling tone. V became a defining science fiction event that mirrored Cold War anxieties and fears of authoritarian control. Created by Kenneth Johnson, the story revealed that beneath human disguises, the aliens were reptilian invaders exploiting trust to dominate humanity. The allegory was unmistakable. Underground resistance groups formed.
Propaganda distorted reality, and neighbors turned against one another in the name of security. At its height, V surpassed Star Trek reruns in ratings, drawing viewers into its portrayal of rebellion against silent oppression. Jane Badler's performance as the icy alien leader Diana became one of the era's most memorable villains. For a short time, the series felt unstoppable, intense, relevant, and disturbingly realistic. But corporate interference followed. NBC rushed sequels and expanded the story into a full series. Budgets shrank, writing weakened, and Kenneth Johnson was removed from creative control. What began as a sharp warning about fascism devolved into melodrama featuring rubber-suited aliens. Viewership collapsed. In 2009, ABC attempted another revival, presenting a glossy and sanitized remake. While the aliens remained, the message disappeared. V suffered because it dared to confront uncomfortable truths about power and manipulation. Once studios stripped that warning away, the heart of the story was lost. Is Battlestar Galactica from 1978. Following the massive impact of Star Wars, television networks rushed to capture cinematic science fiction on the small screen. Battlestar Galactica emerged as one of the most ambitious attempts, presenting a scale that made Star Trek seem restrained. The series opened with humanity nearly wiped out after a surprise attack by the robotic Cylons. Survivors fled aboard a massive warship, searching for the legendary planet Earth. Under the leadership of Commander Adama, survival, not exploration, became their sole purpose. The show embraced darker themes, emotional weight, and spiritual questions, portraying a desperate journey of faith and endurance. Audiences responded immediately. Merchandise flew off shelves, viewers debated its deeper meanings, and critics acknowledged its ambition. For a moment, it eclipsed Star Trek itself. But financial reality intervened. With production costs exceeding $1 million per episode, ABC canceled the series after one season. A rushed sequel followed in 1980, stripped of budget and vision, replacing epic storytelling with cheap production and absurd plots. Fans turned away. It wasn't until 2004 that Battlestar Galactica returned in reimagined form, earning acclaim for its gritty realism and political relevance. Even then, behind-the-scenes struggles and creative exhaustion eventually ended its run. Battlestar Galactica demonstrated that even brilliance can be crushed by the system that creates it. Is Firefly from 2002. Rarely does a show shine so intensely only to vanish almost immediately, but Firefly did exactly that. Created by Joss Whedon, it blended space western aesthetics, political themes, and found family storytelling. Set centuries in the future, it followed Captain Malcolm Reynolds and his mismatched crew aboard the Serenity, surviving on the fringes of a galaxy controlled by an authoritarian alliance. These characters weren't heroes or villains. They were simply people trying to endure. The show's strength lay in its humanity, sharp dialogue, and deep character bonds. Critics praised it as a refreshing return of heart to science fiction. However, network mishandling doomed it. Episodes aired out of order, critical scenes were cut, and the show was buried in an unforgiving time slot. Confused audiences and weak ratings led to cancellation after only 11 episodes. Fans rallied, ultimately leading to the film Serenity in 2005, which provided closure but could never restore what was lost. Firefly remains a symbol of creative potential destroyed not by lack of interest, but by corporate blindness. Is The X-Files, which premiered in 1993. At a time when science fiction television relied heavily on reruns, The X-Files reignited the genre. Created by Chris Carter, it followed FBI agents Fox Mulder, a believer in the paranormal, and Dana Scully, a scientific skeptic. Together they investigated mysteries involving aliens, conspiracies, and unexplained phenomena. The chemistry between David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson became iconic, fueling massive viewership. The show dominated cultural conversation, surpassing even Star Trek, The Next Generation in influence. Its tagline, "Trust no one," captured the era's growing distrust of authority. But success led to overextension. Network demands for more episodes, films, and spin-offs diluted the narrative. The once tight mythology grew tangled, character arcs suffered, and the core mystery lost focus. Later reboots failed to recapture the original tension, leaving the series feeling repetitive rather than dangerous. Despite this decline, The X-Files remains a landmark series, proving that science fiction doesn't need starships to feel vast, only ideas. Its downfall serves as another reminder that in Hollywood, success often comes at the cost of integrity. Begins with Babylon 5 in the mid-1990s, at a time when Star Trek, the next generation, ruled television. Babylon 5 dared to compete, and briefly succeeded. It was more than a space opera. It was an intellectually driven science fiction epic built on long-term storytelling, political intrigue, and moral complexity. Set amid war and fate, the story unfolds on a lone space station trapped between rival galactic powers. Developed by J. Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5 followed Commander Jeffrey Sinclair and later Captain John Sheridan, two leaders tasked with preserving peace among alien civilizations whose fragile alliances were constantly on the brink of collapse. What truly set the series apart was its design. Straczynski planned the show like a novel, with a complete 5-year narrative outlined in advance, ensuring that every choice, betrayal, and death carried lasting weight. Unlike Star Trek, there were no narrative resets. Actions had real consequences, and the plot moved steadily toward a powerful finale. Viewers admired its ambition, while critics described it as the darker, more serialized counterpoint to Star Trek, grounded in deeply human storytelling. The series earned Emmy Awards for its pioneering digital effects and built an intensely devoted fanbase. For a period, it even surpassed Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, a show many believed borrowed heavily from its concept. However, industry forces worked against it. The network backing the series, PTN, collapsed during production, forcing the creators to compress a planned 5-season arc into 4 out of fear of cancellation. Financial strain followed. Budgets were slashed, sets reduced, and several characters removed abruptly from the story. Just as stability seemed possible, TNT acquired the property and immediately pushed for changes, reshoots, and a retooling aimed at new audiences. This led to Crusade, a spin-off that survived only a short run before cancellation. Even so, Babylon 5 endured. Its characters remain iconic within science fiction, and its message of cooperation forged through turmoil feels increasingly relevant. Farscape, 1999. Debuting in 1999, Farscape burst onto television with an explosive blend of puppetry, intensity, and boundless creativity, feeling as though it originated from an entirely different universe. Created by Rockne S. O'Bannon and produced by the Jim Henson Company, the series followed astronaut John Crichton, a human accidentally thrown through a wormhole into the far reaches of space. He becomes part of a sentient ship crewed by escaped alien prisoners fleeing a ruthless military force known as the Peacekeepers. The show was bold, unconventional, and entirely original. Its aliens were not simple humans in costumes, but vividly realized beings brought to life through advanced animatronics and prosthetics that made other franchises appear outdated. Beyond its visuals, Farscape thrived on emotional intensity. It wasn't about idealistic futures or exploration. It focused on disorder, love, survival, and self-discovery. Crichton was no traditional hero. He was confused, damaged, and psychologically scarred by the universe around him. Critics praised it, fans embraced it, and for a time it appeared destined to become a major science fiction powerhouse. But its refusal to conform worked against it. The series was considered too strange for mainstream television, not family-friendly enough, and too costly for its relatively small audience. Despite solid ratings and passionate support, the Sci-Fi Channel abruptly canceled it during production of its 5th season, leaving the story unresolved and fans shocked. Quantum Leap, 1989. Few series have connected emotionally with audiences as deeply as Quantum Leap. Premiering in 1989, it centered on Dr. Sam Beckett, a gifted scientist who invents time travel and becomes trapped within his own experiment, leaping into the lives of different people throughout history to correct past mistakes. Each episode placed him in a new time period, body, and identity, forcing him to experience life from another person's perspective while searching for a way home. Though rooted in science fiction, the heart of the show was empathy, understanding others by literally living their lives. Scott Bakula portrayed Sam with warmth and sincerity rarely seen in genre protagonists. His bond with Al, the cigar-smoking holographic guide portrayed by Dean Stockwell, formed the emotional core of the series. Viewers quickly became devoted fans. The show rose to become one of NBC's most valued properties, drawing massive audiences and surpassing Star Trek, the next generation in emotional impact and cultural influence. It earned awards, inspired novels, and even contributed to broader conversations about consciousness, morality, and identity. The Outer Limits, 1963. Long before Star Trek or Black Mirror, there was The Outer Limits, a series that didn't just forecast the future of science fiction television, it created it. Premiering in 1963, the show focused not on heroes or spacecraft, but on ideas. Each episode stood alone as a cautionary tale examining fear, ethics, and the boundaries of humanity. Its atmosphere was unsettling, lyrical, and philosophical, offering stark warnings about technological temptation, unchecked progress, and moral fragility. Audiences tuned in weekly to hear its now iconic introduction declaring that nothing was wrong with their television sets. The series felt like a transmission from the collective subconscious of a society living between nuclear anxiety and the space race. Where Star Trek imagined hope, The Outer Limits explored dread. Its stories pushed limits, artificial beings questioning their existence, aliens mirroring human cruelty, and time travel revealing the nature of fate. Yet its ambition clashed with industry expectations. Network executives frequently battled with creator Leslie Stevens and writer Joseph Stefano, forcing revisions that diluted its themes. After just 2 seasons, it was canceled despite strong critical praise. Years later, a revival in the 1990s initially succeeded, running for 7 seasons and reintroducing its philosophical style to new viewers. Over time, however, commercial pressures weakened its identity, replacing depth with shock. What made The Outer Limits legendary was never its creatures, but its willingness to ask uncomfortable questions, questions Hollywood repeatedly tried to silence. The Twilight Zone, 1959. Before starships and distant galaxies, there was the Twilight Zone, which premiered in 1959 under the vision of Rod Serling. More than a television show, it served as a reflective lens on humanity's fears, flaws, and hopes. Frustrated by censorship, Serling created the series as a means to address racism, war, greed, and corruption through allegory, using science fiction and fantasy as a shield. Each episode unfolded like a meticulously crafted short story, delivering unsettling twists rather than simple conclusions. A man finds himself alone in a deserted town that isn't real. A soldier relives a battle that has yet to occur. A woman undergoes surgery to appear normal, only to reveal society's distorted standards of beauty. The series challenged viewers to think, securing its place as one of the most influential television programs ever made. It didn't merely compete with Star Trek, it laid the groundwork upon which all modern science fiction stands. Behind the scenes, Serling endured constant resistance from networks and sponsors demanding less substance and more spectacle. Worn down, he stepped away after 5 seasons. Since then, countless attempts have been made to recreate the show with modern budgets and technology, but they failed because The Twilight Zone was never about effects. It was about conscience. It was a quiet voice confronting a nation with its own reflection. Its lasting irony is that the most powerful science fiction ever created required no grand visuals, only honesty and courage. Though it shaped the very soul of the genre, even it could not escape Hollywood's relentless urge to remake what it fails to understand. If you grew up with these series or are discovering them for the first time, share your thoughts in the comments and help keep these forgotten science fiction treasures alive. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vint to continue celebrating the legacy of classic sci-fi.